hours today. Nice to see everybody.
Hey everyone, my name is Jack Williams with
Ehsan and Kassim.
and welcome to another episode of Seminole Script here. We are going on to week 7, 8 is this now of the season?
Week 8.
Week 8 now. We're coming off of Florida State's win. They are now 6-0 against I'm so tired right now. They beat Syracuse last week.
Syracuse, 41-3.
41-3, and now they're heading into a bigger matchup this week against Duke. But before we jump into Duke coming up, let's talk a little bit about Syracuse, shall we?
Yeah, I think we talked about it after the game. That was their most complete effort in a game this year. You know, was it their best game? I mean, probably. Maybe you could argue LSU was a better game.
Mm-hmm.
But from start to finish, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, that was the best they played from start to finish. You could argue the LSU game was better. I would not disagree with that. But from start to finish, that was the best game because LSU got the slow start. Boston College got the slow start. Southern Miss got off to a slow start, so put up 66 points.
Yeah.
So it's been a slow start after slow start. So this was their best start. They did get off to faster against Virginia Tech, but kind of laid down in the second quarter.
Tapered off, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this was their best game from effort from start to finish. And we saw, positive things in the pass game, even without Johnny Wilson playing that one. Keon Coleman had another monster game. Saw Jaheim Bell step up. Destin Hill had 3 catches. We talked to Hakeem Williams today, and he had a nice touchdown at the end from Tate Rodmaker. But we saw a complete effort, a good effort on offense. Probably still points left on the board, to be honest. Defense was a great effort. They allowed 3 points. They played really well. It's hard to nitpick a defense in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the special teams. Keon Coleman again. Alex Mastrono had some good punts. And then Ryan Fitzgerald continues to be perfect this year. He had a 48-yarder. So the concern that people had, he's been kicking easy ones. I thought it was funny. You start easy and you go harder. And he's done everything you've asked from this year. He's been really good.
Yeah, like you said, it was the most rounded effort that we've seen from Florida State this season as well. Just the consistency, I think, is the biggest word from them. It's the most consistent effort we've seen from them, as well as every game up till that point we had seen at least one quarter where they would fall off. And we really saw just, consistently throughout the entire game. They only held Syracuse to 3 points, which is like a season, that's the season low for Syracuse and them this year.
The fewest they've allowed this year.
They've
allowed this year, Florida State.
About that was the word.
And since they played Syracuse last year, when they allowed 3 back-to-back games. They had Miami at 3 points, then had held Syracuse at 3 points in back-to-back games. Since then, the defense has played well, but that was their most complete, best effort.
Yeah, we saw just complete all around. Like you mentioned, a lot of guys saw action, whether it was on the wide receiving core at running back. I think Braden Fisk talked about yesterday how everybody on the defensive line got a lot of snaps. They got a lot of playing time. The big thing too is that the rotation was really consistent in that game too, and nothing really fell off from the defense either.
No, if I remember correctly, I can't remember. I can't. Don't quote me on who read the team in snaps, but if I remember correctly, my PFF story, I stated they played 33% of the snaps, which is fantastic. Your defensive rotation, and they played till the fourth quarter. A lot of defensive players, but they were able to rotate all game, keep them fresh, which is huge in week 7 of the season, game 6 of the season. It's going to pay dividends at the end of the season to have your players fresh now. Because in the dog days, it's when you have more players suffering injuries and just getting hurt by playing more snaps. So by keeping them fresh, it's better for the rest of the season, especially, we'll get into in a second, but a matchup against Duke, which is the best defense they'll face this year. But anything else you want to add on Syracuse?
No, I mean, it was their goal is to play a complete game, and that was probably the closest so far that we've seen to a complete game, but wasn't, like Ehsan said, was it FSU's best game? You could argue that it wasn't, but it was their most consistent game all around and stuff like that. But it's going to be definitely a bigger challenge this week for them as they welcome in, I believe, they up to number 16 now in the country, Duke.
16 AP, 17
17 team in the country, Duke. And the biggest thing that has been powering Duke this year is their defense. It's one, if you look at the statistical categories, Duke is in the top 20 in almost every statistical team category defense, and I think an overall defense, red zone defense, they're the number 2 team in the country when it comes to the red zone, and it's just a a team that knows how to execute on defense very well, and we saw that against Clemson, and we saw that against Notre Dame too.
Yeah, we got Jordan Travis today, and one of the things he mentioned about the Duke defense was they're so disciplined. They stay in their lanes. They don't make a lot of mistakes. So Florida State's got to play a cleaner game, and we talked about that a little bit. You had a story yesterday, yesterday morning came out. I guess that'd be Tuesday morning, about Alex Atkins walked into the press conference to the meeting room with his offensive line. And they already knew, like, the vibe was like, he's not going to talk about their win, their 41-3, the 41 points, the whatever yards they rushed for, or whatever yards they passed for. No, he was going to talk about missed assignments.
No, it was all about missed assignments, and like Atkins, he focused on what went wrong in that game. There was so much about what right, but there's also there's a ton of missed assignments in the game, and that may not fly, that won't fly against Duke, a team that will expose the offense if there's any sort of holes left open at all.
No, he pulled his best Joel Embiid impression at the press conference. He's like, we love the results, but we are very process-based. So he was being very Joel Embiid, no, we want to do, which I agree with. Yes, fans get on us because we gave the team a certain grade. Well, look, this is not a vacuum. It does not matter what they did 2 years ago. This is about judging this team and what they're capable of. What we see in practice is what we're grading them on. And we think that this team has a higher ceiling that could put in the game that has not reached yet.
Yeah, no, and they're really going to be challenged here as well. You talked a little bit about Duke's quarterback and whether or not he's going to play or not, and then Florida State, Norvell talked about it as well, and Fuller talked about it as well too, that they're preparing for Riley Leonard to be in the game. It's unknown what his status is for the Florida State game day to day, but they're preparing for Riley Leonard if he comes around or not.
No, he's a very improving passer. Completed 63% of his passes. Was throwing the ball well against Clemson, against Notre Dame. He's but more than that, he's probably. We talked a little bit about last week. Garrett Trader's the best quarterback they might face this year. Garrett Trader did not have a good game. Florida State neutralized him. Well, Duke has a better offensive line. They have an offensive line that is very talented, and then I think Braden Fish talked about it a little bit as well, right? But they have a very talented offensive line, and then they have a good running game. I think it's one of the best in the nation. Jack has the numbers on that. I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but they're one of the better rushing games. They can throw the ball deep. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. They had some successful passes against NC State. So they do have the talent to do a lot of different things, and obviously, if Leonard plays, that's a game changer because this guy is someone who maybe is a year away from being a Heisman candidate. Jordan Travis spoke highly of him today, talking about how they met each other at the Manning camp, and then Jordan texted Leonard right after his injury and just wished him well, and he said he's looking forward to playing against him. So hopefully we see that because. That's what the fun about this job is. That's what fun about college football is, watching two teams at its best. You don't want to see two teams
Yeah, you want to see the top 25, top 20 matchup that this is going to be. And Florida State's really going to get challenged here. I would say on offense, though, if Leonard doesn't play, there is, kind of a weak spot in Duke's offense. As we saw last week, Duke only threw the ball, I think, 4 times. It was less than 10 times against I think it was
NC one
State.
time in the second half, I read. But we have to remember, they were up comfortably.
They were up substantially, but they did rely heavily on the rushing game.
It was also a redshirt freshman's first ACC start, so I think that was a little bit of easing him in, as Mike Elko, second-year head coach for Duke, alluded to in his press conference the other day, is that they were kind of easing him into that game. They believe in him. So, and also, you could beat, no offense to NC State, no offense at Wolfpack, you could beat them because Duke is good enough. They are a very good team. They're not going to put anything on tape for what this kid could do against Florida State because you want to, if you can win without putting a lot on tape, you do that because you want whatever you do on the field on Saturday to be the first time Florida State sees it.
And this is debatably, from what I did in the opponent preview that will be coming out on Thursday.
Today,
would be this. Oh my God, my words are everywhere today. I apologize. This matchup is important to Florida State as well too, obviously for the ranking stuff like that. But when you talk about from the fan sense and the historical sense as well, Florida State has never lost to Duke before as well. Not going to say the record because I can't remember it right now, but I just remember that Florida State has not lost to Duke before. This debatably is the best Duke team that they have seen in this stretch.
Probably not even debatably. I think it's probably like
hands down. Then
I think it's probably safe to say they're the best team they've ever, like the best Duke team they've ever played.
Yeah, I mean it might be one of the best teams in Duke history. Honestly, this is a good team that's coming in right now. There's a lot of
coached by Elko. Really well coached. I think that's one thing my big takeaway from watching any tape on them, reading about them, is just they are well coached. I watched a Notre Dame game. We watched the Clemson game together. That was impressive. Like, you know, to open the season with that kind of statement was major for Duke, and they have not backed down. I mean, obviously, Mike Norvell called it a heartbreaker to loss too.
Yeah,
you know, it was unfortunate how they lost because they had that game won, and it's football. You know,
yeah, it's college football. Anything can honestly happen.
And Notre Dame, as we've seen, is a very good team. They just knocked off USC.
They are. They Notre Dame's a good team. I mean, it's one of those years this year where the college football is it's at its peak and stuff like that. The game's been really exciting, stuff like that.
Because if you make sense of Duke, I mean not Duke, Louisville beating Notre Dame. And then Notre Dame beating USC, but Louisville losing to Pittsburgh. Make it make sense.
Then you have Miami losing to Georgia Tech in a game that they pretty much had won in the moment. I know as much as Florida State fans would like to talk about it, we'll graze over it.
Just near the ball.
Do the easy thing in this situation, and I think it's some situations that you kind of want to do a little bit more. But anyway, that game is the Duke FSU game is going to be at 7:30 on
7:30 Saturday, ABC broadcast, which means, you know, we are college football junkies, so we're going to be watching Penn State, Ohio State at noon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's nicer when we have these gaps in the day, whether it's a noon game or a late game. You always have to find out when can we watch like either the big afternoon game or the big night game. But how many times in a row has every game that FSU's played in this year have they been on ABC? Except was Southern Miss on ABC?
I don't think so. I think Southern Miss was an ACC network. That was that quadruple header that they put at 8:30 kickoff.
Yeah.
Woo!
Long night, but I think 5 of the 6 games this year, well now 7 games this year are going to be on
6
ABC.
of the 7, yeah, it's crazy. I think that sounds right. You know, I don't have the number.
LSU, Boston College, last week, Virginia Tech.
Syracuse.
Yeah, 5.
So, yeah, we're going on number 6 now.
Yeah, 6. It's crazy. Everyone gets to watch FSU because it's on ABC. But anyway, where can you find all our content at?
You can find our content on Knoll Sports, Tallahassee.com/Knoll Sports. You know, our Knoll Sports Twitter account. We have our Instagram, Facebook. You can find us everywhere. My Twitter handle is at Ehsan, EHSAN _Kassim, KASSIM, and Jack.
Mine is Jack G. Williams. Got very lucky with that. But anyway, yeah, subscribe to.
And one more thing, we will have a podcast which will be included in the Seminole Script Roundtable story, but also on Spotify, which we are going to be doing weekly. We started last week. We're going to keep doing it weekly, so it went well last week. You know, we got some listens, got some good feedback, so we want to keep bringing you guys as much content as we can.
Yeah, and this is where you can find like our midweek breakdown where we talk about last week and this week, and then on the podcast we'll do something a little bit more different. As this week we're going to break down the midseason report card, and then we'll talk about other sports as well, basketball
and we'll have
soccer.
a prediction too for this game.
We will have a prediction too. But yeah, subscribe to Tallahassee Democrat. We have all different content ranging from stories to what you're watching right now to the podcast. We have all different stuff going. As you can see at the bottom of our stories, no one covers the Knolls like the Tallahassee Democrat.
And I will say, I'll plug our website a little bit more. You know, we have some great FAMU coverage from Gerald Thomas, and then Liam Rooney does some great job on preps. So check it all out. You know, we have you covered with everything at Tallahassee.com, really.
Yeah, we got a good team out here. But anyway, we will see you guys Saturday night.